Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So today, I have been asked several times, is discard still in a good place? So a couple of weeks ago, with the most recent patch, a lot of the discard set got balanced. Some cards got buffed, some cards got reduced in cost, some cards got greatly increased, but overall, it shook up a lot of the discard meta. And so it really helped even out the curve for our discard cards. So where Swordmaster used to be a 4 cost, he is now 3. He feels great at a 3 cost. Where Colleen Wing used to be 3, she is now 2. She feels much more usable at 2. And where Hellcow used to be 2, somehow, he is now 4. And so at that point, that late in the game, he feels difficult to use. He just feels okay. But the rest of discard still feels like it is in a really, really good spot right now. That is what we are covering today, is the discard style archetype. And even if your deck varies a little bit from this one, it is still very strong and very consistent. And so I'm going to run through the deck list really quickly to kind of briefly explain what the cards do and why I included them in this deck list. So first up, we have Morbius. Morbius is an auto include for discard style decks. If you are going for a lot of discards over the course of the game, Morbius is going to become anywhere from like 8 to 12 power and is going to be a huge power push for a 2-cost card. And then the Collector recently got nerfed. He is now only +1 power instead of +2. But even with that, with us pulling into our swarms, with our apocalypse, he can still become between a 6 and 8 power card, which is still good for a 2-drop card that you can drop into lanes that might be able to be locked down later. So Miniaturized Lab, a lane that you think they may drop a Professor X in, he's going to be great for dropping in because he's going to grow over time and they can't guarantee that they lock that power level. And then we have Swarm. Swarm is a low cost card. If you have the luxury of having all 3 lanes where you can play cards in, Swarm is going to be able to be discarded with cards like Colleen Wing or any of your other random discard cards to be able to be flooded or swarmed onto the board for a pretty good power push towards the end of the game. Next, we have Colleen Wing at 2 cost. If it's early game, you can almost guarantee that you hit your swarm because you're going to want to drop your Morbius, your Collector, or your Lady Sif before you think about dropping Colleen Wing. And if Colleen Wing and Swarm are the only 2-cost cards in your hand, when you drop her, it'll be guaranteed to get that first trigger of your swarm. And then if it's late game and you know that you're going to be discarding the rest of your cards, you can drop her alongside both a Lady Sif. You can drop her along with a Gambit, a Swordmaster, a Lady Sif to guarantee that you discard some of your other cards as well. And then we have Lady Sif. Lady Sif is going to target the highest cost card from our hand for a discard. And so she is always going to hit our Apocalypse in this deck list because our Apocalypse is the only 6-cost card that we run. If we don't have Apocalypse in hand, most of the time we don't want to play Lady Sif. We want to hold on to her until we do. And then we have Mystique. Mystique has a couple of targets in this deck list. The first one and most beneficial is Wong. If you can get the perfect card placement setup, you can duplicate your Wong's ongoing ability with your Mystique, and that's going to allow you to every single card you drop into that lane is going to trigger 4 times. This is an absolute high roll. It is in here to give you a higher ceiling to be able to push power for certain ideal games. But otherwise, if you don't have the perfect play order, you can always use Mystique to copy a Morbius. An 8 to 12 power extra unit on the board is still very formidable and very worth running in your deck list. And then we have Gambit. Gambit comes in at the 3-cost discard slot. He is going to on reveal discard a card from your hand and destroy a random enemy card. Now this one feels okay. You could also run a Moon Knight, but it really depends on when you're dropping this. If you're planning on saving this and dropping it on the last turn behind like a Wong or a Wong Mystique, Gambit is going to serve you better. If you think you're going to be dropping your discard cards a little bit earlier, then Moon Knight would probably be more beneficial because it's going to potentially make the enemy discard their highest cost card or maybe their key combo piece. And then we have Swordmaster. He is now 3 cost, 6 power, so he is another good fill-in discard slot. So if you drop your Wong, you drop your Dracula, and you need to drop 2 discard cards on the last turn, you can drop Gambit and Swordmaster on turn 6, which will equal out to 4 discards. You can really get a high power push out of it, and you end up destroying some of their cards. You push a decent amount of power onto the board with the plays as well. And then we have Dracula. Dracula, after the final turn, he's going to discard a card from your hand. He is going to now have that power. So Dracula is really hard to counter. He doesn't have any great counters other than your opponent forcing you to either have extra cards in your hand or something of the sort, so that you can't guarantee that you're going to pull into your high power, high value target. And so if they run something like a Maximus, there is a chance that they counter this, but it's very inconsistent. You can't Shang-Chi Dracula. If they lock it down with a Professor X, he still pulls into that power level. So it's very, very hard to compete with a Dracula. And then we have Wong, the wonderful, wonderful Wong. He's going to allow our on-reveal cards to cause double discards. Every card that they would have discarded is now going to be twice. We have Magic in this deck list, which is a new addition for us. Magic is going to help us change some unfavorable lanes, so something like a Space Throne we can throw Magic into. That will open up the possibilities for us a little bit more, and it gives us that 7th turn to draw into our high power, high priority discard cards. So she does almost the same thing as Chavez does in terms of deck thinning, because technically we will get an extra chance to draw into another card as long as we have her by turn 6, and if we don't, then she's still in our deck. We can have our other cards that we would have drawn anyways. And then she also extends the game so we can have another turn to do our highly impactful high priority plays. So then we can drop all of our discard cards on 7, really pushing a lot of power on that last turn because of the setup that we've been doing from turns 1 through 5. And then lastly, we have Apocalypse. So Apocalypse, when discarded, it is going to be added back into our hand with +4 power. And so if we can limit this, if we can drop and discard a lot of our other cards consistently, we can easily get a 16 to 24 power Apocalypse that gets pulled into a lane with Dracula. So that's good for games that have Sinister London, because Dracula can be played twice, which will each discard and buff Apocalypse up further and still pull into his power. So really crazy interaction between the Dracula and Apocalypse here. But overall, the deck list still feels very, very solid. It is very fun to play. We are going to go ahead and jump into a few games. I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, so first up we have Favored Heron, and they snap off the very first turn after seeing Dream Dimension. So we are running a very standard discard style list, but it has some flavor. Now that we have all of the cards, we can do some pretty cool things with it. So we're going to go ahead and, just like we used to do before the patch, we're going to go ahead and spend the first few turns setting it up. And so with this deck list, we do run pretty low to the ground cards. So if we don't draw into like our Lady Sif or one of our other low cost cards, we can still drop Calling Wing as a guaranteed trigger for Swarm here. And so we are going to go ahead and do that. That'll give us our first discard going. And then depending on what we draw into, maybe we want to start focusing on Apocalypse. We can flood this lane with our Swarms. We can also do a Dracula, which is going to be huge in pushing power into that lane after the fact. And so I actually think I like that a little bit better. We're going to go with Dracula into the flooded lane. If they have a Juggernaut, then it's not going to clog up our other spaces. We still have the Swarm that we're able to play later on. And we do have Magic, which is going to be able to change Clintar. So instead of these being 1 power Swarms, we can make sure that they're 3. We can get some decent upside from that interaction. Ooh, and so they don't drop anything into the flooded lane. Okay. And so they're letting their Sunspot buff up. So right now he's good, but eventually he will not be. And so we still don't have our Wong or our Mystique, which is fine, which would be the double trigger for our discard cards. So what we're going to do would have been to drop our Magic into Clintar. That would extend the game from 5. On 6, we could either drop Morbius and Mystique, or we could drop Wong and Morbius. We could drop our Swarms. And then on the very last turn, on turn 7, we could focus on any of the discard cards that we had to make sure that they all triggered and hit Apocalypse, buffing up our Collector, our Morbius, potentially our double Morbius, and then our Dracula at the very end. Alright, next up we have Toxic. And in our starting hand, we have our Morbius, which is going to be used to kind of start setting that play up. If we play Morbius and we draw into, let's say, Swarm next turn, and we don't get any of our other low-cost cards, then we can get the guaranteed trigger of Calling Wing. Ooh, and then we get Wong. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and play Morbius. Or we could hide the Wong entirely. Kind of like that better, right? They don't know that we're going for the Wong discard there. So it's either hide our Morbius and then he gets the ongoing ability at the very end, or hide our Wong. We're gonna hide the Wong, just kind of conceal what we have, and so that the last turn is just gonna be a huge surprise. Ooh, Jotunheim is rough here. So on turn 5, we are gonna change this one. That's awfully rough. That's awfully rough. We are going to go with a pass on turn 3, which is okay. Turn 4, we will drop our Wong. Turn 5, we're going to hit a magic. Ooh, maybe we forego the Mystique this game, because I think it's going to be more important. Actually, no, we're going to discard more cards with our Wong Mystique combo than extending the game and conserving 1 power here. And so this is going to guarantee a double. All right, next up we have Sovereign, and in our starting hand we have our high power cards. We don't have Apocalypse, of course, but we have, now we have our setup cards, and so we can do a Morbius. We can then follow that up. If we get a 3-cost card, we can do something decent with that. Maybe we even copy Morbius's ability with our Mystique. Ooh, and the Wakandan Embassy is great for our Swarm here. And so on 4, we will most likely drop, we can drop our Wong, and then any discard card that we send after that is going to double trigger. We can always do Dracula on the last turn as we draw into additional resources. And so I think this is going to be best, especially with Calling Wing, or if we draw into Lady Sif, that's amazing as well. And then Gambit will be fairly decent. And so let's go ahead and I think we go ahead and extend the game here. That leaves us open to do a Dracula and a Calling Wing on 6, and then we kind of have a lot of freedom on 7 as well. And so we have a pretty good shot here, especially since they're running low to the ground cards. I don't know. Ooh, that is actually really rough. So the Gambit comes in and destroys their Angela. So the Doc Ock there is really, really unfortunate for us. We do get some guaranteed triggers of our Swarm here. And what was the last card we played? The last card we played was Magic. So we don't have a target for our Mystique here. But we can do a Calling Wing. We can do one of our 5-power Swarms. All of these are going to buff up Morbius. And then, of course, we're going to be able to discard on the last turn into probably a Swarm. But we should still be able to get a decent power push. Calling Wing is going to discard Swarm twice. Morbius is going to buff up each time she discards a card. And then we're also going to have those cards to flood onto the board and then to draw into with our Dracula here. And so they did a Doc Ock, they have a Colossus and a Sentinel and an Okoye. Interesting. I'm not really sure. Not really sure what they're running. And so we have the Swordmaster. Do we get rid of our Mystique to make sure that it doesn't get discarded? Actually, no, I think we do. I think we need to play it somewhere. Where do we think we're going to need power? I'm not sure. We're just going to split the difference. And so we're going to go with a 20 power Limbo lane, a 14 power Wakandan Embassy lane, and then the sewer system is actually going to get pretty large by being able to discard 2 more cards here from our Swarm. Morbius will continue to buff up, and then Dracula is actually going to buff up Morbius even further. And pull that card in with our Dracula. Okay, so they do push the power into Limbo. So unless they do something really, really crazy here, we should have a pretty easy shot to win, either in the left and the right, or potentially even the middle. And then right now it does look like we lose the left lane, but we are going to discard one of our cards right at the end. They did use Maximus to force us to draw into additional cards, which does kink us up just a little bit, but Morbius still buffs up as a result. Dracula still buffs up as a result. In Mystique right now, in the first 2 games, does feel a little clunky, but she has some good targets. Maybe we need to split the difference, stop going for the high roll of Wong so much, and maybe use her on Morbius if we get the chance, because another 11 power or 12 power card at the end of the game is still really, really big. All right, next up we have Ner'zhul, and the first turn we are going to skip. The second turn we will probably drop our Collector. The Subterranea does hurt a little bit. It is a little bit rough for us. It really kinks up our draw potential. And then, there's Scorpion as well. So that really plays into whatever deck they're running. Ooh, and then we get a Lady Sif. So do we want to play our cards, or do we want to do something like a Wong, and then we could do the Lady Sif or Wong and then Dracula? I think we hold for now. I don't think we do anything rash just yet. I think next turn we do a double Dracula. If we can draw into Apocalypse, if we can somehow make that happen, then we will get an incredible amount of upside in... That's not... We could do Wong and then Mystique, and then we have 4 Wongs across the board. So anytime we discard a card, it's going to go on forever. Which, I mean, as far as buffing up the Collector or even a Morbius is not terrible. I don't know. I do like the long-term power potential of a Dracula. So I think Wong is more of a high roll. I think So they ran a Daredevil. That tells me they are probably going to be running a Professor X, a Destroyer. So I think we need to try to future-proof our kit at least a little bit. And so if we drop the Wong and Mystique and then they Professor X that lane, then we can't push power into that lane after that fact. But with Dracula here, we will be able to continue to push power. And so I think we're going to go ahead and they turn first here and they see what we're going to play. So they get to see what we drop. If they do a Professor X here, that is another 5. That's another 8 power, so it's 20 power here. We don't have a way to do that, do we? We don't have a great way to do that. So we're going to go with the Wong and hope that the Wong gets put into a lane that is not frozen with a Professor X, or even a Hobgoblin. A Hobgoblin would feel pretty awful at this point. Okay, so they do go with the Professor X. So the double Professor X into the Dracula lane. We do get an additional Wong out, right? And it has to go into Nidavellir. So that at least guarantees us a little bit of upside there. We are going to go ahead and now extend the game. They are probably going to drop a Destroyer here. It's a big if, but if we can get lucky and draw into... No way did we make them retreat. We were sitting on an entire rock collection. And so thank you for thinking that we had the high roll hand. We still had to get a very lucky 1 in 8 chance on our final draw. Oh man. All right, so next up we have Lordless Warrior, and in our starting hand we have Collector. We do have our Apocalypse, which is big. We also have Magic to extend the game a little bit further if we need. We have some decent power push cards. Sanctum Sanctorum is a little bit tough for us, so we're not gonna be able to push power there. I think we play our Collector outright, and then we see what we can draw into. So Lady Sif is a tough target as an easy way to discard or guarantee that we discard into our Apocalypse. I think we roll the dice here. If we discard our Mystique, that is fine. Our Calling Wing, that's fine. Okay, that's not terrible. What we need to do is we need to win in Baxter Building, and that is like an absolute requirement. And so we're gonna be able to drop Wong on 4. We can do a Mystique on 5. We can extend the game with a Magic in Kunlun on 6, and then that will allow us to discard a lot of cards on the last turn if that is something that it looks like we need to do to push up over and win. And so we're gonna go ahead and extend the game with our Magic. Next turn we can play Dracula. Actually, do we have any discard cards left? We have Gambit. Gambit's the only one, right? Because Calling Wing got discarded. Lady Sif got destroyed. Our Sword Master came down. So Gambit is the only thing that can save us in these next couple of draws. Beautiful Gambit. Beautiful, beautiful. And so we are just going to play our Dracula this turn. We have to win in Baxter Building to win in Sanctum Sanctorum. And so it looks like they were going to go with like a Death and a Taskmaster, so a double Death drop. We are just going to go with our Dracula. And so they do a Death and then a Taskmaster. No, a Death and a Leader. And so their Leader, interesting, copies the Dracula, but it may not be a huge power push for them. We don't know for sure. But we can do Morbius. We can do Morbius followed by our Gambit here. That is going to trigger only twice, but it does guarantee that we pull into 12 additional power into the Dracula lane, and it'd be another 6 power with Morbius here. And so we should have been able to be in a really good spot. Plus Gambit was going to destroy some of their cards, so potentially a Leader, a Death, even their Dracula. So I think we were in a pretty decent spot there for the last turn, despite not having a great draw line. All right, so next up we have Kha'Zix the Unique. And in our starting hand, we have our really high power cards. We have Magic, we have Wong, we have Dracula, some really good high power, high impact cards. I've been thinking about this a little bit. I think the way to make the Wong Mystique combo work is if we drop Dracula first, We then drop Magic on 5. That allows us to drop Wong on 6. Mystique plus 2 2-cost discards, or Mystique plus a 3-cost discard for the final turn for the 4 triggers. So I think that's how we're going to be able to make the combo work. So they have Sunspot. I think we put our Morbius into the middle. We will probably put Dracula in the far left lane. That way it can come up over their Sunspot. They lose that upside. Ooh, and then we draw into 2 cards here. Okay, so I think with that, we're going to need all of the space we can get. We're going to need all of the space we can potentially get to play our Magic, play our Wong, Mystique, and a discard. Ooh, and so they have an Electro. Interesting. So maybe on the last turn we do a Gambit for our discard. That way it'll be 4 cards that get destroyed. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and snap off of that. I feel pretty confident. Their Electro is fine. Ooh, and they snap right back. Okay, good friend. Okay, as long as they don't have a way to shut us down in one of the lanes, then we should be okay. So we are gonna go ahead and play. Ooh, so the Hobgoblin is a tough one there off of their Electro ramp, and so we are gonna go ahead and play Magic here. I think if we need the additional power push, it's gonna be in Hell's Kitchen. So let's go ahead and extend the game. Okay, and so we will do that. They leader our Magic, which is not great for them. So even if they do an Odin next turn, still not great, and it caps them out here. And we just have to come up over just a little bit of power in this last location. And so now for turn 6, we can do something like a Lady Sif, which guarantees that it hits our Apocalypse. And then we do our Wong. Turn 7, we do a Mystique and a Gambit, which will 4 times trigger. So that's going to hit 1, 2, 3, and then whatever we draw. Instead of the Lady Sif here, let's go ahead and do our Swarm. We want to pull into a big Apocalypse in this left-hand lane. And so if we don't, we're going to get our Collector and our Morbius buffed up further, but I don't think that is the play. And so we go with Wong. They go with a Professor X, which locks down Central Park. That is fine. Dracula is still going to be able to pull that power in after the last turn here. And so I think that is absolutely okay. Do we need the additional power push in this right-handed side? We can do Swordmaster, which will trigger 4 times, and it gives us 6 power in Olympia. Unless we think, but they turn first. Do we think we will get lucky with any of our triggers? We would have to hit. There's 4 targets in Central Park that are not going to be able to be destroyed because of the Professor X. In this lane, we're going to need 8 power or more, which of course is our Apocalypse. And then if we discard 4 times, that's plus 8 power here. We would have to hit one of their cards or be able to win this lane. And so I think we're gonna go and we are gonna roll the dice. We are gonna try to mitigate their upside. If an extra 5 power in this lane would have won it for us, I'll be a little bit sad. Let's go ahead and roll the dice. Let's go ahead and give them a good thumbs up for a good match either way, whichever way this flips, a good match either way. And so they pull in with Jubilee. Oh, they don't pull in with Jubilee because they don't have any cards left in their deck. Good sir. Did they misread what they had? And so we are going to be able to, it looks like, sweep the game. We're going to be able to sweep the left, the middle, and the right. Huge last turn. And maybe they were going with a low power card so that they could buff this one up. I don't understand the Jubilee there, Kha'Zix. I mean, we will take 8 cubes where we can, but I don't feel like we earned that one as much. Maybe the leader play just didn't work out and then they stuck it out till the end anyways. But with that 8 cube victory, we are pushing up close to 90. So we are closing in on our infinite push. Today has been a very good day for climbing and for playing, and so I hope it has been good for you as well. We are going to go ahead and end the video after that 8 cube win. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. I am still taking a look at all of the deck recommendations and trying some out outside of the user suggested deck list. That gives me a little more flexibility to make tweaks and changes, but nonetheless, we do have a lot of exciting things coming up, so I hope you guys stick around. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you check out some of the other videos if you haven't already. We have plenty of deck builds for just about every card that it has been released in the game. I am going to go ahead and end it here. I hope you guys enjoyed. This has been TLSG. Later, guys.